lovely friends, good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in, thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Together we can make a difference if we try. Hello there, my lovely friends. Good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome into a special edition of the Joe Schmoe Show. Thanks, everybody, for dropping in and joining me. It is exactly 1 year since my very first live stream on my channel. That was with Salty Sleuth Investigates, who's listening in. I don't think she's going to be able to join us today. She's going to go out with family, so we're going to have to change up the game plan a little bit, which is, you know, you have to do on the YouTube streets. You got to change things up, but we do have a packed lineup today. But first, I just want to say hey to everybody in chat. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all of my subscribers for sure. Gosh, there are way more people. Oh, Salty's here. Salty is here. There are way too many people to say hi to everybody individually. I would like to, though. It's going to be a jam-packed day. Oh, Pammy, thank you. Thank you so much, Pammy. Yes, I consider you a virtual friend, too. One of these days when I'm going through Texas, maybe we can have coffee together. Today was a good reminder, though, of all of the things that can go wrong. A half an hour ago, I was jumping onto StreamYard and the camera wasn't working, and then I rebooted everything, and then the microphone wasn't working. But Salty, hey there, my friend. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good. Congratulations. Looking forward to the show.
Thank you so much. You are my OG. You were there with me 1 year ago today.
Yes,
talking
sir.
about Delphi.
We ever stopped since then?
We haven't. They just give us so much to talk about.
Well, it may appear to some that we don't talk about it, but boy, do we.
Yeah, there are just times when you have to take a break from it. Like,
yeah.
And there are times when there are other stories to cover. I mean, like, I'm going to be honest. When I was covering Lori Daybell's trials, I didn't get to spend as much time on the stuff that came out, the evidence that started coming out, the interviews. And so maybe we can still do those and talk about those. But
Oh, yeah.
Lori is such a vampire. She's such a time and energy vampire. Oh, thank you, therapist. You know. Thank you.
A lot of these cases are energy vampires, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And that's why we're here, to get the life sucked out of us.
We got nothing better to do. We seek it. It's all good. It's all good.
We have jam-packed show today, though. So the Squeegee of Justice is coming up here in a couple of minutes. Then Bob Motta is going to jump up, and then Steve from Publicly Buzzed has been a friend of the channel for a long time. And then at the top of the next hour, Mike Watkiss is scheduled to come up. And he's like an OG true crime reporter. Like, he was a reporter for The Current Affair, that show from the 90s. And he covered O.J. Simpson. He covered Lady Di's funeral. I mean, he covered Richard Ramirez. Like,
all the stuff that I was like knee deep into, all of that coverage. Yes, sir.
And he was Mike. He was there boots on the ground, which is, I love that. I love that. Like, so I've got his book, and I just finished his book. When Princess Di was killed and she had her funeral, his producer said, how quickly can you get to the airport? He was at the airport in an hour, and he was in London just as fast as that plane could get him there to cover that funeral.
Yeah.
So he was boots on the ground.
That happened, or that evening when we went to a football game over in Alabama, and we got home, turned on the news. It was the first thing we saw. It was the tragedy that happened with Lady Di. So I remember all his coverage. I was a current affair junkie.
Right?
I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing true crime for a long time and consuming it. And yeah, that was the place to be back in the day.
It was. And I have questions for him, like, especially about the evolution that has happened from then to now, or devolution, if you will. Like, have we devolved as a society? Have we devolved as a true crime society? That's like a big question that I have. Yeah.
That's what is true crime anymore, right? As far as, there's just so many different ways it's covered. But the ones who actually talk about crime in the way it should be. So it'd be interesting to see what if he has noticed and observed over the years, right? With the change in the way we take in our information and get it out there. So that's super interesting to me.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And I mean, that's why I started my channel a year ago, because, first of all, I have that interest in true crime. I like to research. I like to investigate. Like, I was supposed to be an investigator, but I took a different career path. But I'm old enough now, I can investigate again, and I can help find justice. And that's what is keeping me going right now. That's what's keeping me going. Justice for Abby and Libby at first. And do we know if that's been achieved? You and I still have lots to talk about on that. Justice for JJ and Tylee and Charles, that has been achieved, 7 life sentences. And now I just stumbled across the story of Lyndon Valdez in Oklahoma, and her mom has agreed to an interview after this at 4:00. So in a couple of hours, I'm really looking forward to that, because the world is not covering stories like Lyndon Valdez. Like, they just slip through the cracks, and society goes from Karen Reed to Donna Adelson, like, with the drop of a hat. And that's just the way society is. And you and I have to, like, figure out how we're going to cover that, if we're going to cover that. And Brian Koberger and the Idaho 4 and all of those.
Some of these cases, when you start following them, you have no idea where they're going to land, how things will end up. None of us that started covering the Idaho 4 case when it happened, none of us expected to be here today and where that case went and how derailed it got with social media involvement and the different things. Karen Reed blew up and became a hot mess with social media. There's so many different, and I think it's just going to be a personal choice on how we present things, how we talk about the things, and what kind of audience we attract with that, and we all know there's crazy streets out there, and we have to be careful out there, but just do us the best we can, and hopefully we do right by these victims, because without a victim there would never be a case. Without 4 victims in Idaho, there would be no reason to talk about Brian Koberger.
Right. Thank you, Butterfly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just figuring out how to do it, and we learn as we go, right?
I do, and I'm still learning so much. Like I have made
gosh,
so
yeah.
many mistakes, and I just pray that with every mistake that I make, that I learn to try and not make it again. And I've made multiple mistakes, but I'm trying to get better every day. And deep down, I have to check my gut on what I cover, that I can't just follow the crowd. Like when I find a story like London Valdez, I have to go with it, and I have to submit my FOIA requests. The medical examiner's report came out on Friday, and hopefully her mom, Brittany, will be willing to talk about that. But but it was like Patricia Wu in Pima County, and it was like, gosh, who was the other gal that I covered when I was there? I got like 150, maybe 200 views for that, and I do it all over again. I got an email from one of her friends back in Hong Kong that sent me an email personally thanking me for covering that story and getting the police reports and covering those police reports. Because I think to this day, I think I may be the only one that has a copy of those police reports of their investigation or lack of investigation into her disappearance.
And the thing about people who disappear, you know how many a day there are, right? So how many cases end up becoming a national story? You know, children versus the adults, what kids do become the topic of the day, like with Sebastian Rogers and Madeline Soto disappeared the same day. Different things, you know, and then there were more than just those two kids that day that went missing. So we may pick up like that locally. There are a couple of missing girls here, have been missing for years and years and years now. They have never gotten the attention they deserved. So just getting those stories out there. And so what if it gets 200 views? Those 200 people cared enough to come show up and hear the story.
Exactly.
Hopefully then they can share it onto their socials. That's the thing I tell people. If you really want to help and be proactive and say, you know what, this girl's photo needs to be out there. This girl's story does need to be out there. Retweet it. Put the flyer out on your personal Facebook that, you know, family and friends can see and share as well. You never know when a missing kid's going to show up in your hometown that you're going to see him at the gas station just off the interstate.
Yeah.
I look for Sebastian Rogers all the time, just in case.
And when you have a case like London Valdez, where and thank you, Junez, thank you so much. And happy anniversary to you and your husband too.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
40 years is a while.
Oh, well, you do deserve a big old congratulations.
Yep. Yep. But with the London Valdez case, the medical examiner has taken a while to come back with their reports. They released the preliminary one yesterday, which actually is a pretty decent time frame from the date of her death to when we get the preliminary report. It's going to be 11 more days before we get the final reports. But being able to put pressure on the law enforcement agencies to bring answers for the families is critical in a case like that, because they know she died and it wasn't probably, I'm not going to talk about it yet. I'll let her mom talk about it in a couple of hours, but getting it out, getting the word out there about it and about the investigation. When investigations aren't as thorough as they should be, then publicity is hugely important in those cases. Anyway, so we have Squeegee coming in now.
Some.
Oh, at the stage.
Joe, what
You're
are
up
you?
And then you're gone. You're up and then you're gone.
You okay there, Squeegee? He had you going up and down for a moment. I was worried.
You're muted. Squeegee, you're muted.
I felt like I went through the portal and came back again.
Oh, Lord. No.
I feel like we've been through that Lori portal a couple of times.
I've tried to get you guys out of there. I've tried.
Well, Joe, first of all, congratulations on 1 year. I am humbled that you asked us to join you for your 1 year celebration stream, and I can't think of a better way to spend a few minutes of my Sunday holiday weekend with you. So again, thank you for having us on, and congratulations on 1 year.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, and Salty, I don't think we've ever actually had a chance to talk, so nice to meet you.
You too. I know we have seen each other and we are always like hi and
Mhm.
chat, but yeah, so
Yeah.
nice to meet you finally. Good to have you up here. He deserves it, doesn't he? To have his little celebration here and to have all of the community members with us. It's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will echo what you guys were talking about a few minutes ago about Joe finding the trials and the cases that you want to watch, regardless of what everybody else is doing. You seek out and you find the the trials that impact you or speak to you. And I appreciate that because I think we're kind of the same way. If to a fault we go out of our way to try not to stream the trials that everybody else is, sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you do have to,
Yeah.
so to speak, jump on the bandwagon just because. But Joe, I do appreciate what you're doing as far as shining a light on cases that, quite honestly, a lot of people haven't heard of, and B, will not cover because of whatever the reason. So I appreciate that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because I wouldn't have 3,400 subscribers right now if I hadn't gone out in person and covered Lori's trials. Right? There's no way.
Right.
I'd probably still be stuck under 1,000 or around 1,000.
Mhm.
So that gives me a bigger platform to be able to talk about London Valdez and her case. So it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, for instance, we're covering Donna right now, and of course, everybody and their grandmother are covering Grandma Gotti. So,
Goodness.
but we've been interested in it since we were down in West Palm, and we heard about this back in 2014. So, it's one of those cases that hits a little bit closer to home for us because we do know everything that they're talking about. Broward County, Miami-Dade, West Palm, Jupiter. We know those places, so it has a little bit, has a ring to us. But I know what you're saying. Like with Karen Reed, we stayed far away from Karen Reed just because everybody else was doing it, and we wanted to go more off the beaten path and try and cover trials that don't get the media coverage that everybody else is giving. So
Well,
right. And so what was
Karen
that?
Reed's about sucked the life out of me. I streamed that.
Mhm.
I didn't watch that first trial, but I did the second one. I'm like, okay, I'll bite. It seems interesting now. Trial 2, okay. But I was like, is this thing ever going to end?
Right,
Was it ever going to end? So
Yeah.
we all get, going back to what you said, picking up on cases that might mean a little more. I'm a Floridian, but the
Mhm.
Addison case, I just cannot get into. I don't know why. Her energy strikes me as something I don't want no part of.
Right,
Almost, it's like an
right.
energy thing for me. But I'm like, yeah, y'all keep that down there in Tallahassee and way down there in South Florida. I'm over here in the farther most closer to Alabama. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
you never know what cases how they're going to end up. Like you said, when you start covering them, and if you were interested and you had been watching all of that, of course you're going to follow up with it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, getting and there's so many different good trials to watch out there, though, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of that, what was the trial that you watched instead of Karen Reed while Karen Reed's second trial was going on?
Right.
I know the
Turek.
answer to that.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was. He had just ended, so we kind of did a rewatch, but he had just ended like the week before, so we weren't that far behind on that. Gosh, what else? You put me to the task.
What was
now,
that?
Joe.
What was that? What was the kid that stabbed a bunch of people?
Carlos Dominguez.
Yes, and was that a hung jury on that, and he's going to be retried?
Yep, in January. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. They were. It was hung. Well, actually, they found him not guilty on. So he stabbed and killed 2 people. Can I say that? I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
No. Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, he stabbed and killed two people, and then he stabbed a third and did not kill her. So they found him not guilty for the 2 that actually died, and then the third they were hung. So they're going to retry him. They're going to reduce the charges. I think the charges were a little overcharged, and I think our chat kind of agreed to that. So they are going to recharge him, recharge him, and send him back to trial in January. So we'll cover that. We'll definitely cover that.
Yeah, and I think by the end of that trial, you had quite a few people watching that because you were covering that when almost nobody else was, and then all of a sudden, I saw another channel pick it up, and then another channel picked it up, and but you had a bunch of viewers watching that trial.
We had the camera operator was in our chat, and I had him call in a couple times. We had courtroom people that were in the area. This was out in California. If people aren't familiar with it, UC Davis was the campus area, and we had people that lived within half hour, and they were going there. They were calling in, which is always great. I love when that happened. Like when we did our recaps with Lori, I just love when that happens. So yeah, we did gain a lot of people through that because even the local channels weren't covering it. And Law and Crime started it, but then they stopped like after day 3 or 4 or something like that. So it was just the local channel that was covering it. And there were a lot of people that were saying, nobody else is covering this. I don't understand why. And to me, it was a fascinating trial. Yeah.
It dealt a lot with mental health issues, right?
It did. Yeah. Schizophrenia. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia by 2 mental health workers that saw him in the jail. And then there was a psychiatrist there's a psychologist and 2 psychiatrists, and they were all court appointed except one the defense bought. And all 3 of them said that he's got schizophrenia. So I think that weighed heavily with the jury. I think they saw that and they were like, yeah, this kid needs help. Don't put him in a prison where he's just going to rot away. He needs to be in a facility that can help him. And a lot of chat were saying, oh, he's going to get back on the streets if he's in an institution or a facility. And we have Psychosaurus Rex. She's out there, and she's now one of our mods. And she was offering some fantastic insight during that case. And she's like, no, these facilities are not good at all. You are not. It's not a pleasure dome. You are going to be. You have to go to counseling constantly, group therapy, individual therapy. It's not fun and games at all. So that kind of opened my eyes. It was really good to have her insight and her in the chat to let us know that.
Yeah, those things are good to get insight on. Like here in Florida, we have a case locally where the kid, he killed his mother, but he was found insane right at the time. So he was sentenced to the Florida State Mental Hospital. But every 6 months, he has to go before the review board. And the family is subjected over and over every 6 months to, where's he at now? Where does he stand? Is he competent now? Is he not? How many years will that go on for them to have these different, constant revolving door hearings to decide his competency level? So people can think that, they're going to get off and they won't get into prison. But these particular hospitals that are run by states like that, they're not, like you said, they're not a walk in the park for sure.
Yeah. And unfortunately, prisons have become, I think it was during, was it Megan Boswell that we were covering, and that came up, maybe it wasn't Megan Boswell. Anyway, I did some research, and it was like prisons have become a de facto facility anyway, and something like 35 to 40% of prisoners do have some kind of mental issue, if you will, whether it's schizophrenia or some kind of psychological or psychiatric issue. So that's a problem, I think, because how can the prisons deal with that? Are they getting their meds properly? Are they being treated? Do they have access to quality therapy?
Are they like Richard Allen, where they're getting involuntarily injected with Haldol?
Yeah,
Right.
but to Squeegee's point, I agree with that, because if we are supposed to send people to prison and they are supposed to learn their lesson, pay their debt to society, what kind of help are they getting and rehabilitation are they receiving in the prison leading up to their future release? Are we releasing them back onto society as a better person, or did we make them worse in the prison? It's the catch-22 to me. Yeah, we want the bad guys in prison forever, but what about those who are getting out in 8-10 years?
Right.
So those programs matter to me.
Yeah. Psychosaurus Rex reminded me it was Chloe Driver was the one. Megan Boswell we started to cover, and then we stopped that. And I can't remember, there was another trial that came up and we kind of put her aside. But yeah, it was Chloe Driver, which I still think there was something there that did not make her, in my opinion, there was a lot of doubt. Are you guys familiar with her at all?
I'm not, no.
Yeah, she offed her little daughter. I think she was like 1 year old or something like that. But she was part of this quote unquote cult. And this is where Jason was there, and who was the other guy? Z. He was like this cult leader, and this guy was in his 30s, and he saw Chloe at a bus stop when she was like 15, 16, and he kind of groomed her, and he brought her in. They traveled the country. They're both Jason and Z are wanted around the country. They have warrants, and they actually, I think Jason was in jail. He showed up in his prison garb, and I think it was like for fraud or something like that, out in California, stuff like that. So. Yeah, there was definitely for me, there was some reasonable doubt because, I think there was evidence that maybe she did actually, it was like she sliced her daughter in the throat, and then she's like, she didn't die right away. So then she decided to, cut herself and, try to delete herself as well. But then there was evidence to me that the person who discovered all this was Z, and he was like the leader of this whole group. And, he was the first one to kind of discover them. And it's an interesting case. If you guys get a chance, if you ever do any rewatches, definitely go check that out because it's an interesting case, I think.
Absolutely. And thank you to Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that very much. Very generous of you. It is a lot of work. This whole thing is a lot of work. Yeah.
So Joe, you have I want to talk about you a little bit while I have a little bit more time before Bob comes on. So we've seen you kind of from the beginning, right, at Lori, doing going down that investigative reporter route, and I absolutely love that, and I hope that you continue doing that and you grow and blossom with that. What are some things that you feel you have learned in the course of the past year that now going into year 2, you will maybe do differently, do better, improve upon? What do you think?
Yeah, the investigative reporter thing is scary because I didn't see myself as that when I started, but it kind of is the route that I naturally gravitate towards. Like I love doing research. I love doing boots on the ground. I went out, to Delphi to attend the trial, and then I went to Phoenix to attend that trial. But I also did a bunch of research in the meantime. But the number one thing that I learned is always have a plan B. You can prepare to the gnat's knees, and something's going to go wrong, and you got to have a plan B.
Backup. You always have to have redundancy and backup. If you think you need 2 cords, bring 4. If you think you're going to need 1 light, bring 2 or 3. If you think you're going to need 1 bottle of water, make sure you have 5. Things like that. Yeah,
and so now I have 2 cell phones. I have 2 laptops. I have lots of cords. I have 2 sets of lapel microphones, although people wish I would use them more so people can hear. I have some videos from Kerr County that I'm supposed to release, and they needed some editing to improve the sound quality and the light quality because I just didn't take the videos in the best environment, and I didn't ask the girls to share a microphone. Like I have a Bluetooth microphone that they could have passed around when they were talking about it. So it's not the dynamic content that it could have been if I was just a little bit smarter with my use of technology.
Right. So what do you think, like what's on your radar for the coming months into next year? Do you have any trials that you absolutely positively want to see, or are you just going to kind of let it happen as it happens?
Yeah, I think you and I are kind of the same way. Like the really big trials, like we avoid for the most part. I mean, you're covering Adelson, and I'm just kind of casually watching it. But then a good friend reminded me the other day, well, maybe people that are in your community want you to comment on those bigger trials. So there's Barry Morphew is coming up. And then there's a case in Texas that Ada K pointed me on to, and I submitted some FOIA requests, and I actually got the probable cause affidavits on that a couple of weeks ago. So she and I need to do a co-stream on that, but that's Brad Simpson. And he's like Barry Morphew, but without the found body. Like they have not found his wife's body yet.
Yeah.
They have suspicions about where it's at, but they haven't found it yet like they did with Barry. So
now are you going to go to that? Do you think you're going to go down to that?
No, I probably won't. Ada K is going to go to that, so we don't need multiple boots on the ground for that.
Gotcha.
But But the probable cause affidavits are very, very interesting. And that's my jam. I love doing research. I love doing FOIA requests. And I have things that other people haven't got before through their FOIA requests somehow.
The Simpson case has been around for a minute.
Yes.
The Brad Simpson case.
Yep. And guess what? We have another special guest in the back room ready to come up.
Oh, no.
Please,
Who is it?
Drum roll. Do we need a drum roll?
Da-da-da-da.
A supporter of my channel from the very beginning.
Up, y'all?
The Holy Grail.
What's going on, man?
What's up, Mr. Motta?
Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to y'all. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day weekend. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm here to celebrate Joe's 1 year anniversary of the tubes, man.
Yeah.
Congrats on that, brother.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have supported me from day one. Like back when I had like 10 subscribers, you were like, go check out Joe's little baby YouTube channel. Yeah.
I like to do that for my friends. I like to think that I did that for everybody that I think is worthwhile watching. So, and you are definitely that. I had the pleasure of meeting you first in real life, of course, in Delphi, so we cut our teeth there and spent 3 glorious days and listening to testimony in that case. But I've always been a fan of yours, man. I think you do good work. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Always.
Delphi was something else, wasn't it? That was something else. Still
sure
is.
was. Sure was.
Did you guys know each other before then, or did you meet at Delphi?
No. I had been following Bob's channel and watching his coverage of the case and other things. I actually started listening to you with your John Wayne Gacy tapes with your podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's I love true crime. And if one of my mods would drop the link in the chat to that would be great. But when I go to sleep at night, I just pull up a podcast, and most of the time it's true crime. So
yeah,
I started listening. Yeah, I started listening to that, and I'm like, I was hooked. And then I started following your channel, and then you started covering Delphi, and I'm like, so after they arrested Richard Allen, I was like, sweet, they got the guy. Abby and Libby are going to get justice. And then I started listening to you, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not so sure.
Right. It was same. Like, I'm 2.5 hours from Delphi, and I'd follow the case. I didn't really cover it, in terms of the speculation, like during the 5-year interim period between the crime and the arrest. But when they made the arrest, I was like, wow, can't believe it. And the first thing with that is that they sealed the PCA, and I'm like, what? What could possibly be in this PCA that they needed to seal it? And, when it dropped a few months later, I was like, wow, like, I do not know why they sealed this. Like, there's nothing. And if you want to redact names, that's common. If you redact names, addresses, phone numbers out of a PCA, no problem. But in terms of what was contained in there was no reason that they should have ever sealed that. And so right from there, it put a red flag up. And then when I'm reading through it, I'm like, wow, this, and look, I look at everything through a defense attorney's lens. I can't help it. It's what I am. It's what I've done for a long time. So I looked at it and I'm like, man, this is mere presence and some shitty identifications and some junk science. That's
Junk
essentially
science.
it's like the unspent casing thing is just, you don't convict people on that alone, and that to them was their strongest piece of evidence. And I don't know, like right from there, and then it just got worse as it progressed. So
and then they wouldn't release any evidence. They wouldn't let the public go look at the pieces of evidence. They let the media go up and watch it, but Allie tried, and
Allie tried.
Give her a
Girl
college
tried.
try.
But they have released transcripts now.
Yep.
And in that hearing on whether or not to seal the PCA, Nick McClelland stood up there and said, we want it sealed because we're still investigating the possibility of other suspects.
Yep.
But Tobe Lesenby and Tony Liggett and Jerry Holman all got on the stand and said, I believed from day one that Rick Allen was the only one. So which is it? Who's the liar in that case?
Yeah, and I mean, there's been so many clips of all of those guys saying that, you know, they thought that there could be multiple people that had contributed to these crimes. So it's like, you know, like all of that stuff, and I get it. You know, I mean, law enforcement can obviously change their theories as they go through an investigation, but you know, just kind of the whole way that thing went down, and we'll see. You know, I mean, there's going to be, I don't know that it'll be filed in September, but I don't think it'll be any later than August if they ask for another extension on the appeal. But you know, I mean,
did they just ask for another extension or an extension, right? Because I think I
Yeah.
read that. Yeah.
yeah, I think until early September, like they had done it in or early August, because I think the brief was due, and then they asked for it. I believe it's around the 6th or 7th of September. So if they need more time, then they'll ask for it again. You know, I mean, the appellate court at some point is going to be like, yo, you know, get the thing in. But, you know, there's always, they'll have put explanations as to why there was a delay. And we know that them getting the record together took a bit of time. So, you know, and they need that. Obviously, the appellate lawyers need the record. So
I met Joe because of our interest in the Delphi case, and we were showing up in the same chats and having conversations. I was starting to go live. Joe was like in my chat, I'm like, get up here and talk to me. But Joe and I were going into your chats because I always appreciated the way you dove into the document side of it, right?
Yeah.
Whether all this stuff the streets were saying was true or not, you know, whatever. But it was done in the dark, and I appreciated the way you spoke about the differences in the PCA of Brian Koberger versus Richard Allen. I'm like, why can't nobody else see this? And then here you come, and I'm like, thank you. It's like a breath of fresh air, you know? So we appreciate all your coverage there and unpacking the documents, because that was where Joe and I relied on, because I literally stopped watching a lot of the Delphi coverage on the streets because it was just too much.
Oh, you're muted, Bob. I saw that happen in real time. You're still muted.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
I've got
that's what. Nice. Uh-oh. You're muted.
That's what it does. It mutes it on both places. Thank you.
There we go.
I was trying to get, you know, tech wizardry at its finest. That's it's my go-to, but I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I mean, when we started the channel, you know, the concept behind it was always going to have to be that we're attorneys. You know, I think that there's value in that. I think that if people are interested in it, if they're interested in knowing how the system works without having to go to law school and practice law, I wanted to try to give people a place to come and learn. And, you know, with me being very straightforward, that look, I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not the government. I'm a defense attorney. I'm going to look at everything through a defense attorney's lens. So I never pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm very straightforward in terms of where my biases may lie. That being said, I can look objectively at cases, and when they've got somebody, they got somebody. You know, it was like that. And, you know, so there's plenty of cases where they get it right, you know, but you know, because I think if you're a channel that thinks that everybody's innocent, that tends to chip away your credibility in terms of being a serious person, because it's just not factual.
I absolutely wanted to talk to you about that, because that's your angle, and you have the defense attorney background.
Yeah.
I'm just an everyday Joe Schmoe. That's why I named my channel what it was. I have no legal background. I have no legal expertise, but I have learned a lot over the last year, like going to the 3-day hearings in July and August, and going to a couple of days of Rick Allen's trials, going boots on the ground. I went out to the south end of the Monon High Bridge, and I went down the hill where they were abducted. And I went to every single day of Lori Vallow Daybell's trials.
Yeah, which is awesome. And
I also went to jury selection. And if you haven't ever been to jury selection, people in my audience right here now, find a way to get to a jury selection at some point, because it is so educational. And it also restored my faith in the justice system.
Yeah.
Because Rick Allen's verdict was disappointing to me, because if I was on that jury, I would not have been able to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I would not. I just flat out would not have. But then I know more than that jury knew, so it's hard to like blame them. But I was disappointed. But going to jury selection for Lori Vallow Daybell was just totally restoring to me of the
and frankly, Joe, I just talked about this recently when we got to observe some of the jury selection in Adelson, which is, I mean, frankly, cross-examination, direct examination, all of that comes in during trial is incredibly important, but nothing is more important than the selection of the jury. It's those 12 folks, or depending on where you're at, if it's a petit jury, or, they only require 6, but like the selection of the jury is everything. I mean, those are the people that are the finders of fact, and that is where frankly, the entire case is won or lost in jury selection, depending on how you're able to select these people on very limited amount of information.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Of course.
Daily on my show, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be defense attorney today or prosecutor. It depends on which way I feel like rolling in with this case. But Ann Taylor dropped that big survey about jury questionnaires. And is that a route you would take? It's always intrigued me, because I know both sides choose jurors and have the questions. I don't know how in depth it really ever has become, right? Outside of the jury questions they're going to ask them. But Ann Taylor seemed to go next level with it. I had not really heard of it going that far. What would you have done? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I mean, in terms of that, it's really left up to the judge. So we've had judges that basically bar us from asking anything beyond just generalized questions where we can't dig into, trying to figure out who the person is fundamentally, because really that's what matters. I mean, every single person is different. Every single human being has their own realities, their own tragedies, their own ups and downs, their own lives. So we're all individuals that think and view things differently. Like that's the nature of the beast, so you're trying to do your best job when you're picking a juror to find somebody who, number one, is just a baseline, is not coming in completely biased. Because if it's a high profile case, people just by human nature are going to have a bias one way or another, depending on the coverage or the media. They're going to either think, okay, well, I've watched the media, I've watched all the reports. It sounds like they got the right guy. I think this guy is potentially guilty. And I use guy generically to really, it applies to both men and women for me. But in terms of, you've got to go deeper than that. Like, do they have that bias that whereas just by way of somebody sitting in that chair, that they're prone to think that person has committed a crime, that they're there for a reason. So, and then depending on what type of case it is, you really try to dig in as much as possible. And like in Illinois, we get a very, very limited amount of information through our jury surveys. They're not very detailed. You get your baseline info, you get, married, single, kids, education level, what do they do for a living, things like that. Do they, have they ever been involved in the criminal justice system themselves? Have they ever served on a jury? Have they ever been a victim of a crime? All those kind of things. So you get that kind of stuff, but beyond that, there's not much there. It's like I'm always sitting there as soon as I get the names, which is usually the day of when we're selecting the jury. Like it's not like whatever that flick was with the John Grisham thing where, they get these just dossiers and all these jurors and they're doing all this information way ahead of time. Like that's not how it works in Illinois. Like you get it like right away, the morning of, and then I'm trying to go on Facebook and try to glean into who these people are. If it's a case that I feel may have some kind of like political underpinnings based on what it is, then I'm trying to see which way these people might lean politically, because I might be like, oh, well, I'm better off having somebody who's more liberal, or I'm better off having somebody that's more conservative on my jury based on what the underlying crime is. So there's just a lot there. But as far as Ann Taylor, I mean, when you're talking about a death penalty case, it's just a different ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. It's completely different. You're given a lot more leeway, and you have a lot more responsibility as far as being the attorney representing the person that the government's trying to kill. So
yeah, and in the case of Lori Vallow Daybell, she was representing herself, so she had
That's on
almost
her.
no relevant questions. Like
Right.
her question was just, so if I don't testify on my own behalf, will you be prejudiced towards finding me guilty, or will you find that, you know, incriminating that I don't testify on my behalf? That was basically her only question.
Which isn't a question she needs to ask, because there's a jury instruction that tells them that.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so it's like, you know, her shit was like, oh, well, you know, are you a fan of green chili chicken enchiladas? I've got a great recipe. I've got a great recipe.
I
Now,
use canned chicken in mine.
You have to, as I understand with Chad Daybell, you have to be, the defense has to be death penalty qualified. Is that true for all states then?
It depends. In terms of the death penalty qualification, if they're appointing a public defender, okay, you have to be death penalty qualified. So for appointment, if you're hiring your own attorney, you don't have to be certified death penalty.
Okay.
You should obviously have enough experience trying cases to where you're competent. But you know, that Sixth Amendment right to counsel of your choice is going to weigh in your favor if you're the defendant, if you've hired somebody. Like, it wouldn't be a good idea if you're out hiring a lawyer, if you have the money, if it's a death penalty case that is a bankruptcy lawyer coming in and saying, well, you know, this is a good friend of mine, they know me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
They're a lawyer and I want them to defend me. So
like my cousin Vinny.
Right. It worked out very well for them, you know. I mean, surprisingly.
Right.
7 times he finally passed the bar. So, you know, I mean, he finally he got there at some point.
Somebody else backstage that you might know, Bob.
All right.
Wow, bring him on.
Steve-O!
Oh,
everybody.
the party's here.
What's happening?
What's up, dude?
Not much, man. Battling allergies today,
Oh, yeah?
dude.
It's
What do
that
you got?
time of year.
What do you have? What allergies?
Whatever's going on with this weather, dude. Like, just my
Yeah.
eyes are itchy as shit, and like I can't stop sneezing today. Just getting
Uh,
brutalized. Actually,
Wow.
after my murder church this morning, I went and got some Claritin. I'm hoping that helps me out.
And it's not even fall yet, right?
I know. Like, I can already feel at least here in West Virginia, the weather is already feeling as if it is fall.
Yeah.
And we're not even out into September. I'm mad. I'm mad about it.
You're not going to be happy a month from now.
I know.
Yeah, it's been pretty mild this week too. It's not quite that fall weather, but it's close. Like, it's been like low 70s all week, which I love.
Same here.
My favorite
Hey,
weather.
Florida's not even having the humidity today. I'm loving it. It feels great outside.
Oh
Mhm.
man, Florida,
Yeah.
brutal. That humidity is unbelievable. The only place that's worse is New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a different level. Like, as humid as it is in Florida, like when the airport doors open in New Orleans and you walk out like in August, it's unbelievable. There's nothing
That's
like it.
funny. My son went and took a trip over to West Virginia and he flew back. He's like 18, but when he flew back, he said, Mom, I got off the plane back here in Florida, and the minute I step off, the humidity just knocked me down. I'm ready to leave again. I was like, my baby's
I don't think
running far away.
I don't think I would do well in Florida. When I go to like South Carolina, the beach or something, I can't breathe really.
Yeah.
You would not do
Florida.
well. You would not do well in Florida then, Steve. No way.
No, I think my son's going to leave me and go down there with Steve. I see it coming.
Now,
It's even
Bob,
worse in New Orleans, dude.
you've done Jazz Fest, right? Now in New
Oh,
Orleans,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
is that usually like in April, March or April, or
Yeah, so it's typically the last. So it there's 2 weekends, but then they have the days in between. So it's the last weekend of April, first weekend of May, and you know, so they have the fest at the fairgrounds, the music, Jazz Fest proper is on the first weekend, and the second weekend we will typically go down like midweek after the first weekend, and we do the second weekend. But yeah, we had up until this year, we had I think it was a 13-year run, and this year we couldn't make it because of various other obligations. But Yeah, it's amazing. It's my favorite town. Like, we'd love to retire there, but I couldn't live there in the summer. It's unbearable.
It's
You
brutal.
you can't go
Yeah.
outside. It's like, it's unbearable.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have AC. If you don't have AC, you're toast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like in Chicago, you need heat, right? You need heat. You
Exactly.
can't survive a winter without heat.
And we get a fair amount of humidity out here too, man. But it's like nothing like that. Like Florida, if you have a pool, you can survive. It's like in the summer. Because my in-laws live down in Florida, and it's like, but New Orleans, there's no respite. You just have to stay indoors the whole time because it's just so thick. It's like that thing where you can't breathe. It's insane.
Right. Yeah. You take a shower, you go outside, you need another shower. It's just ridiculous.
Bad place to be homeless.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So you are knee deep. You finally finished the Phil Spector trial, which was an incredible endeavor. What a marathon.
16 months.
What an incredible the stick to it,
dude.
That you showed.
I started that at the beginning of Karen Reed 1 and went all the way through Karen Reed 2. It's crazy.
I commend your what's the word? Your
fortitude.
I was gonna say fortitude. You stick to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Dedication. I dedicated myself to that one for sure.
You're doing Charlie's trial right now, right? That's what
trying to play off of Donna's. It basically worked it out perfect timing, and I put in a little extra time on Phil at the very end to try to match up with Donna's to try to the same reason I did Phil was because of Alan Jackson.
Yep.
And but yeah, man, I'm into Charlie's right now, and it's been super interesting as I watch Donna's in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, where are we at? I mean, Donna's done. Donna's toast, right?
Dude, it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all.
Yeah. They're just stacking, brick upon brick upon brick on her. And some new evidence came in too, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I thought the journal entry or the calendar entry with the Dan's plate in there was very damning.
Yeah.
Like, especially as a 2014 calendar or they've been able to stack quite a few bits of new kernels that we had not heard that were pretty damning, that really hurt her. And I kind of thought that they were getting towards the end of their case in chief. And, I know Charlie's in town. So, I started thinking about it, and I think that the best approach for Georgia in that case would be, because you've got this kind of magical scenario for Georgia wherein he's not going to be able to hear what Donna is going to say on the stand. So it's kind of like that same concept where cops have two people that they're interviewing at the same time, and they're matching their stories up, and neither one knows what the other one is saying. It's the exact same shit. So she's going to be able to put Charlie on in rebuttal if Donna says some crazy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what do you think about Wendy lying on the stand, in the sense of, well, let me ask you, did you pick that up yet?
Which part?
Right. Which part?
Which
the one that jumped out at me is on the stand. She said that she was told about the shooting in the police car right after Isom came to the restaurant. But then in her interview, when he says, "Hey, your husband's been shot. It doesn't look like he's going to make it." She's like, "Oh my God." So which is it, Lori? Lori, listen to me. Which is it, Wendy? Which is it? Yeah. Which is it, Wendy? Did you hear first at the restaurant or right after the restaurant, or did you hear in the interview room when you were transported back? So
look, ultimately what we care about with Wendy is there enough? Is there enough to get a conviction on conspiracy? Because you have to show that there was agreement, and you have to show that there was some kind of participation. It's like, is straight knowledge going to be, and no one knows that more than Georgia. In terms of the way she stacked up these trials, she's doing everything that she can in terms of, trying to potentially build a case against Wendy. I think that's always in the back of her mind.
Yep.
But ultimately, and I have to say, I think Harvey's next. I think there was enough that came out in this with Harvey.
Yeah.
It's like, because like I was playing devil's advocate with Allie, and I'm like, well, I could see a world in which Donna, was the one handling the money. You know, she did it at the business. I could see her doing it at the house. It's not uncommon. A lot of times women handle the finances for the family. And I could see a world in which, you know, we know they got paid in cash quite a bit at the office. I'm sure they had a safe that was stacked with cash. I could see a world in which Donna was able to, you know, take out $100,000 out of there if he's not looking in the safe ever, which is possible. I mean, the guy's turning 80. You know, I don't think he's in there counting the money every night. So, you know, and then she just says, oh, I got to go to Charlie, drive me. You know, I was like, I could see a world in which that exists, but there's clearly knowledge after the fact. So,
he was there when she's on the phone.
About that.
Yeah.
I was about the husband. I mean, because I agree with you, Bob. Totally, she could have kept him in the dark about all the finances, not outside the realm. But as I've watched a little bit of the case, because I have watched bits and pieces of it through your coverage and others that I see on the YouTubes, but I was curious about the husband's involvement. Have they been able to prove or even try to prove he knew anything?
I think they have stronger evidence against Harvey than they do Wendy. And you know, they have some pretty good, they have some pretty good circumstantial evidence against Wendy. You know, exactly what we just talked about with the, you know, the inconsistency with when she learned about the shooting, that would tend to lead you to think, okay, she knew, you know, that she's bullshitting two different people about when she learned about it. You know, you obviously have the point of time in which she drives by, but I'm like, is that stuff enough? You have the fact that she's taking down her kids' pictures days before, you know, as if she's in anticipation of moving, you know, like the plans are in, you know, so she's got these things that she's done and she said that certainly are very, very suspicious in terms of whether or not she was involved in the conspiracy is a different issue though. You know, you have to be able to prove more, like just her having some kind of thought that maybe something was going on. I don't know that that's going to be enough. And like I said, I mean, no one knows what she has more than Georgia does. Like we have to have faith in Georgia at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's done such an amazing job on this case, you know, because it's like when people look at it and you're like, well, what the hell took them so long to try Charlie? I mean, they had all this shit back when, you know, they were taking Katie and Sigfredo down and got, you know, Luis pleading out, you know, they had all this. It's not like it's new, but in the answer to that question is Georgia. You know, Georgia had to come along, and Georgia's the one that had the stones to try the case, you know, because it's that, that thing.
It was Katie that flipped ultimately that I think that's why they pulled up Charlie then. If Katie hadn't flipped, they wouldn't have had her testimony at Charlie's trial.
Yeah, but what do you think's the impetus of that?
For her flipping or for?
Yeah, for the flip.
She
had nothing to gain.
She says in the hopes at some point to be able to get out of jail. That's what she said this last go around. Right. That's her hope, you know? So, oh no, she wanted the family, she wanted to have justice for Dan Markel. She said that a couple times too. Right. So did she all of a sudden grow a heart now and she wants to, you know, help the Markel family find justice?
It's hard to know. It's hard to know. I like to think that Georgia had a lot to do with it.
I've got another guest coming up here, so I'm going to have to.
All right, Joe. I'm going to take
Thank
off.
you to Chris. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us. And Salty, too. I think I'm going to have to say thank you so much for joining.
Yes,
see you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Right.
Y'all have a good afternoon.
Bob. All right, Joe. Happy anniversary, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this next year brings for you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Later.
Bye.
Dude, yeah, Harvey looks amazing to be 80. Holy shit.
Yeah. With the perma frown.
To be honest. Oh, yeah, dude. He's just like.
All right. Here we have an OG true crime reporter joining us. Mike Watkiss, you're muted, but welcome to the party, pal. If I had that
there we go.
right,
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
And with the killer handlebar mustache on top.
Congratulations on the first year anniversary, Joe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Let's give you the props.
Indeed.
Thank you. So we met at Lori Daybell's trial. And when I first met you, I had no idea who you were. And now I have mad respect. And I bought your book and I've read your book now. And you have a history of true crime reporting that goes way back. How long have you been doing this?
Well, it's, I hate to admit all this stuff. It's about 50 years that I have been a reporter for, at some level or another. And most of the time I have sort of gravitated to cops and robbers, murder and mayhem. So it's a better part of 50 years covering, the police blotter, as we used to call it back in the day.
Wow. So what? Okay. So I could tell you, because I could pull out your book and I could read the chapters, but tell me your 5 biggest cases that you've covered.
Well, the stories that people are going to recognize, we were one of the first TV crews on the scene the morning they found Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. Mm-hmm. So it was all over the OJ thing. Yeah. Because I was based in LA and we got lucky and we're really one of the first crews on the scene, and went on to cover those early moments as this double murder turned into the trial of the century. Last century. That's a big one. We covered locally, we covered Jodi Arias from top to bottom. And then the stuff that has been the focus of most of my work, and what we've spoken in the past, Joe, is focusing on the Mormon fundamentalist communities that practice polygamy. Probably the best known is the FLDS and Warren Jeffs. And I think, without overstating the case, I think our reporting definitely had a major influence on how this story has unfolded. The fact that Mr. Jeffs has ended up in prison for the rest of his life, and that a federal court went in about a half dozen years ago and took control of Hilldale, Utah, and Colorado City away from the cult. Those are the steps that really, it took a long time to get there, but it really forever changed the dynamics of that religion, that community, and the fundamental practice of polygamy and abusing children will go on, but it's now in a very different place.
Wow. Yeah. And talk about investigation, and you talk about boots on the ground, and that's so inspirational for me, because that's what I enjoy about what I've done over the last year, research and boots on the ground. And you've been boots on the ground for some of the biggest stories. And
we discussed it just, now I've been doing this long enough that it seems every couple of months there's a 25th anniversary. And we were on the ground, in really the bloodied and battered part of the Gulf Coast during Hurricane Katrina, now 20 years ago. And I'm watching all these specials. And there was a moment when me and a cameraman the story everybody had sort of focused on New Orleans and Louisiana, understandably. They got flooded sort of after the fact. That was where the real trauma happened. But when that storm came in, just to the east in the Gulf Coast, places like Biloxi, Mississippi, they got flattened in the initial stages. Again, New Orleans, the big damage was the flood aftermath when the levees failed. But in the initial days, other places just got the hell kicked out of them and just got leveled. And so there were a lot of people reporting from the New Orleans side. Me and a cameraman commandeered a car, basically stole a company car, and said, "This is not where we need to be. We need to go where nobody is." And we ended up in Biloxi. And I've seen now CNN doing sort of their retrospectives with a young Anderson Cooper, when he was sort of emerging as the main guy at CNN back on the, covering that story. And there was a several day period that Anderson's crew and my crew, me and a cameraman, were the only people who seemed to be operating in Biloxi. And we were sharing a live truck, both of us, just, nothing to eat, no place to stay, and just, sheer will. And it's interesting to see, what's happened to the communities, what's happened to the coverage of stories like this. It's fascinating.
Bob, do you have any questions for Mike?
Well, first, the thing that when you were talking about covering OJ, you do have a little bit of a resemblance to Fred Goldman, man.
Well, there you go. I know.
You guys remember what Ron's father looked like?
Yeah, it's the mustache.
It is. But
he's a good guy, and I've interviewed him several times, and a very nice man.
He's a very good man, and he had an absolute tragedy that he's had to deal with his entire life since then. It's funny that you bring that up. I had done kind of 20th anniversary / memorial about Katrina a couple nights ago on the 29th on the anniversary of it. And like one of the things, like you, I think a lot of people didn't really understand that, in fact, that the Katrina didn't actually hit landfall. It was like a Cat 3 when it hit, but when it did veer off east, like you said, Biloxi just got hammered, and it was the failure of the levees. And you can always point your fingers at the Army, the engineer, or what the hell is it called, the Army
Corps of Engineers.
But I had a couple of lawyers on that were handling the criminal justice system down there, and it was unbelievable, like what was going on down there, like after the flooding took place, because the courthouse, the jail held like 6,500 people. So like, and that was just like, and it was just chaos.
And then all the folks that ended up at the Superdome, and with really no plan on, we're going to get them all there because it's dry. But as soon as they all gathered, they had tens of thousands of people. There was really no game plan what to do next.
There wasn't, and so because I was I'm a lawyer, so I was kind of looking into from the criminal justice side of it, and the constitutional triage, if you will, that they had to try to put whittle together down there, because obviously you have people that are in jail that have to be in front of a judge within 60 days and otherwise charged or released.
Wow. Sure.
People that are, like up against speedy trial demands. And, my one buddy who was down there right when it was going down was like, the fact of the matter is it was so corrupt down there in terms of the system, like that. Actually, the flooding was kind of like the only silver lining, in that it really kind of washed away all the bullshit in terms of the corruption that was going on with the prosecutors and the cops down there. And they really kind of had to start over. So if you kind of look at the arc in terms of what they've been able to do with the criminal justice system, and the fact that the public defender's office down there was only funded by traffic tickets alone. So obviously when the flooding happened, no money was coming in, whereas the prosecuting office had millions of dollars coming in. So it was never an even playing field, but it was interesting. So I appreciate boots on the ground coverage like you do, man.
It was great. And there was a moment in time that you remember where it was just so desperate. There was no gas. People didn't have any power, cut off. And we had a vehicle, and a cameraman and I ended up spending about a week literally sleeping and living out of that. And, making sure that we got it gassed up every day, and then parked it behind one of the few all-night gas stations that remained open, because at least there was some sort of law enforcement presence. Because as the days dragged on, it became sort of and people became more desperate, it became more dangerous. And so it was fascinating. From you're looking at the systems and the long-term impact, and you forget how much got screwed up with it, something like that, the criminal justice system. But we were looking at just the immediate response, desperate people with no food, no place to stay, and no help incoming, at least in that first week or so. And so, I know for me, it was one of those kind of assignments, Joe. You're out doing the field, and I can tell you there's a handful of times when I've gone out and really sort of, thrown ourselves into the story. And when I got done with that and finally got the green light, you're going to come home, get on an airplane, I went to the airport and I called my family on, just saying, my dad's on the way home. And I heard the voices of my two then very little children. And after all that I'd been through, I just broke down in the middle of the airport and started sobbing. I had a home to go back to, and my little kids were safe and dry. And I've just seen this just tidal wave of, a literal hurricane of death and destruction. And those are the kind of job, the stories that it will forever leave a mark on you if you care about people and you really sort of get involved.
Mike, during that time, I remember being in that area. Do you remember or had any run-ins with any bad actors or gangs, or there was a lot of violence?
There were looters all over.
That's what I really remember from that time, are the stories of rape and violence and pillaging.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that's hyperbole after the fact. I mean, we were definitely in areas where, like, we were talking to some guys who had businesses in one strip mall, and then across a large parking lot there was another strip mall. These guys got to their strip mall and protected it. Folks at that other one, and it was cleared out. I was on the streets of Los Angeles during the riots, and the looting after the Rodney King trial, the trial of the police officers. And, so I've seen widespread looting when just sort of the rules of society are suspended like
right.
that. In the aftermath of that verdict, in a situation like just utter destruction and chaos, there's some people who are going to take advantage of the situation. But that wasn't the overriding story. We were dealing with hard-working, decent people. Most of them kind of poor, but hard-working people standing in long lines just to get a bottle of Gatorade.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people we saw. But were there examples of violence and people, unrest and craziness? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it was an untenable situation. Yeah, like you say Gatorade, but just like water, fresh water. It's
people.
Absolute nightmare fuel to think about. Like,
no,
which we've seen it time and time again since, even, but not to that magnitude. But what happened in North Carolina last year was crazy.
Yeah,
what happened in California with those wildfires. What we've seen and then we've been having wildfires in North. It can come in floods, it can come in fires, it can come in human-made craziness. But there are those moments when it just suddenly think everything just gets turned upside down. And, and then for us as a society, a community, as journalists, as people who care, is how do we respond to that stuff? I'm still in the business of covering stories, not just because they're bad stories, but thinking maybe there's something we can all sort of glean from this common experience,
Right.
And that's the hopeful side of, what I do.
Yeah.
So as a society, we gravitate to the big stories, like the 2 FLDS kids that were abducted by their parent, right? And they're still missing.
My knowledge,
right?
Yeah.
But we're not talking about it anymore. Mainstream media is not talking about it anymore.
And this is where guys like you, Joe, come in, and I think with projects like this, because you can grab hold of a story and get a really big audience. I mean, this is you say what you will about the goods and the bads. I mean, some podcasts really suck. Some of them do really important work, and I think that these are the kind of stories when you get onto something and hang on to it and keep it before the public. This is where I think there is a unique opportunity for the podcaster of today to do that. But you're right; the 2 Roundy children that went missing, just 3 or 4 months ago up in Idaho. The mother had already lost one child that was sort of abducted back into the FLDS. And then, 18 months, 2 years later, a couple of young teenage and other children of hers are also taken. We've spoken to the mother several times, Elizabeth Roundy. She's a wonderful woman. In many ways, she sort of exemplifies what's happened to a generation of folks inside this religion. She was a faithful member, got badly abused by them, her kids taken away. It took years for her to finally get herself out. Then she goes back into the heroic thing. I got to get my kids out of there too, that I've sort of given up as I've been sent away. She fights to get her kids out, and then people, nefarious actors, come in and sort of squirrel, kidnap, take these kids away. And it's a heartbreaking story, and she's not alone. So I'm glad you're talking about that, Joe.
Hey, Mike, I've got a question for you, and it's more, I would consider you to be an actual investigative journalist. In terms of kind of the current state of that occupation in conjunction with mainstream media, do you guys exist in their eyes anymore? Because
that's a good question.
To me, mainstream media, and we know that they're owned by individuals typically, and they typically, you just can't get like actual reporting on anything where you've got a guy like yourself that's going on and just actually trying to report on what's happening.
Yeah, well, and I've been retired for enough years that I just have seen so much change, just technologically, the impact of the internet, sort of the corporatization of individual tribes of media, I mean, and I don't have any solution. I mean, I know that I still like doing what I do, and when people come to me and want some help with stories that I know that I can lend a hand with, I'm anxious to jump back in. And I know they're good journalists. Throughout my career, we're celebrating the life of one of my colleagues who just passed away here in Phoenix, who was a giant in the industry here, a good man, and a guy named Frank Camacho. So there, I mean, maybe we're a dying breed, the old schooler guys, but I think people still are desperate for information. They're desperate for good stories, and they're still desperate for the truth. So is it coming to you in corporate television channels and cable news networks? I don't know if that's where you got to look anymore. I think, but there's still where there is a will, there is a way, and people who want to, I tell the stories and hopefully share the truth. They're going to find a way to do that. Maybe this is what guys like Joe and some of the folks that I met during the Daybell trial, which was fascinating because of the media coverage, let alone the trial. It's, maybe this is the way it's going.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely going that way. I think this platform we're on right now is the future. And I think that this is where you're finding, and you still, like you said, you have to be able to sort through the bullshit to find the people that actually know what they're doing and have some kind of scruples and some ethics behind them in terms of trying to get the story out, because I mean it's a scary thing. Like our channel, my wife and I are both criminal defense attorneys, so that's our slant, but I left practicing and and I look at cases from a different perspective, but my real mission is to kind of educate people on what the fuck's going on out there. In a way that's
a tall order. So
it's a tall order, man.
Taking on that challenge.
It's a tall order, and it's a hard thing to do, because it's easier, like for a channel like mine, like a law tuber, to just kind of sit on the fence, because if you're like, oh, my business model requires me not to do anything to where I'm going to lose subs.
That's how a lot of people play it. That's the grossest, I think. I hate that.
Yeah, it's the worst, man. And it's like, a lot of people aren't willing to do what we do because I'll take a position on a case and, I'll say, all right, well, this is what my opinion is on it. And sometimes that's unpopular, and a lot of times but I'll always back it up with fact. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the same thing with investigative reporting these days. What I tend to see is that a lot of reporters, they have sources, and if those sources so happen to be law enforcement sources, you're not getting an unbiased take from that reporter because they're not going to do anything to step on the toes of the people that are feeding them information. So, like, to me, that's not helpful. I mean, you need people out there that are going to be willing to dig, that are going to be willing to say things that may not fit within the mainstream narrative, but may be true nonetheless.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, it's a fascinating area, man. I mean, we need guys like you out there, dude. So like, I know,
I'm an old guy, so it's I'm passing the torch to a new generation. I'm hoping there. Okay. I'm an old guy that I get involved in these stories now when people reach out to me, and I've sort of set my gold standard in that I've just spent a lot of my career covering the abuse, the sexual abuse and trafficking of these young girls in these fundamentalist areas, and given my history and sort of knowledge of the past, when folks reach out to me, and so this is really my MO these days, when I know that there's a part of this that I could have some impact on, those are the stories that I still dive into. But in terms of today's investigative reporters, it's a brave new world, and I certainly don't pretend to speak for the folks who do that these days. And it's a hard business, and there's the media. I got a daughter who's a television reporter, and the world has been whipped up into this sort of that everybody in the media is a bad person. And, that's not, I know, I can just tell you, I've spent most of my career with these folks. There's some flaming idiots, sure. My cell phone, forgive me. But, are there some flaming idiots? Yeah. But are there some people who are very responsible and try to do the right thing every day? Those have been the majority of folks I've worked with Yeah, sorry.
I think but you can say that about the mainstream media, but you can also say that about the YouTube streets. There's some friendly idiots on the YouTube streets.
Nobody is pristine, and the problem with the world today is, that everybody thinks they're sort of entitled to their snarky opinion, and whatever, maybe they are, but it's one of those kind of things that I think that we've got a lot more information available to us, but I'm not certain we are a lot smarter as well.
No, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
that is for sure. And the problem with YouTube is that anybody can start a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Like you don't get that kind of filter where, some of the things that may be problematic with mainstream media, wherein, they're filtering it through whatever their slant on a story is. That's a problem.
Or they're concerned, or their concerns about getting their ass sued. Or
exactly.
Yeah,
or the liability side of it's huge.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, with YouTube, that's what I'm saying. It's up to people out there that are watching YouTube to kind of vet who they're getting their information from, but they're, like you said, man, there's really a sucker born every minute. And, there's always going to be an audience for, folks that just want to like put shit out there that has no real basis in fact. And, people will buy it and run with it. But, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. I don't know what the answer is.
I've got a question for Mike. So when I did a show with Joe after you guys had done your last show, and I started looking you up, and I thought it was really interesting.
Sorry about that. Forgive me.
I thought it was really interesting that you had interviewed Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, it was a long time ago. I was working for the TV show A Current Affair. Long story. I'll try to keep the bullet points, but working for the TV show A Current Affair. Ramirez was already a well-known brand name at that point. He had already gone through his LA trials, been convicted, I think, of 13 grisly homicides and sentenced to death 13 times.
Horrible story.
He's now so this is late in the legal game, the courtroom drama. Now he's being held in a jail up in San Francisco's meat market area, the Tenderloin district, a shitty old, ancient jail in San Francisco, because during a trip up the coast, he killed a man and badly assaulted the man's wife. And it was a classic Ramirez home invasion. So he's sitting in a jail in San Francisco waiting to be tried for a 14th murder. Now, suddenly, all of his groupies are showing up at this outside the jail, because Richard was nothing if not sort of a would-be, ladies' man. He loved that. And there were a bunch of women who were showing up at this jail at visiting hours and basically jostling, fighting, whatever, pushing each other around in order to get in and see the Satan-worshipping serial killer. So when I was working for A Current Affair, that, of course, was immediately a current affair fodder. They said, get on that. So I got on an airplane from Los Angeles when we heard about these the altercations outside the jail, went up to San Francisco and made friends with a couple of the gals and got to know Richard. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in a little room interviewing the Night Stalker. That is the short version.
That's insane, though. That's insane.
But it was, and I mean, literally, I'm in a room where I don't know how you guys can, not smaller than the space I'm certainly in right now. And it's Richard and me, a little table, and then a cameraman sort of wedged outside the door. And, and we just sort of went at it for about 30 minutes. And it was certainly not my best interview, but it is certainly my most notorious and famous.
That one, when I looked it up and that popped out, I was like, holy shit, this dude has interviewed the Night Stalker. That's insanely interesting, but also sort of frightening, because he's actually scary to me. Yeah. Well,
he's a character. There's no doubt about it. What I did, and I don't know if it was smart or stupid, but right before I went and interviewed Richard, I went and met with one of his last victims, a man that he had, assaulted, broken into the guy's home, shot the guy 3 times in the head, and the guy lived.
Wow.
The guys, the young woman who was living with a man, his fiance, was badly raped. They were planning to get married, had huge, futures, and Richard took it all away. So many years afterwards, when I'm now going to interview Richard, I said to myself, I got to get a real sense for who this guy was and what he did. And the only way I'm going to do that is talk to people who know what the story is.
Yeah.
So I went and spent a day with this man named Bill Carnes, who was, again, one of the last victims of the Night Stalker. And I got myself all worked up, feeling pissed off for Bill. I mean, he's in a home for people with bad severe head trauma, trying to keep his life together. His young nieces came and visited him that day, and he's trying to push them on a swing. It was just heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah, that's
and I got full of that, and I was so pissed off at the Night Stalker by the time I went into it. I just want to jump across the table.
Yeah, it's hard to go. That's I think that'd be the hardest part about interviewing any. I've got a friend that has done a lot of interviews with serial killers. And
that's not my role.
The anger, because you're a journalist, you need to keep that in check. That seems so crazy.
That's a hard thing to do, because I've been told. So I've gotten to know through Lori Daybell's trials. I've gotten to know family members, Megan Connor and Kresha Easton. So Lori's cousin and Charles's niece, and I've been told, dude, you got to keep your distance, and I just can't.
Yeah, well, you can't. There's no way you can sort of erase your emotions.
Like I've been wearing every day since I got it. I've been wearing a bracelet that says "Justice for JJ, Tylee, and Charles."
Yeah, I got one on my desk as well. So, yeah. There's no way you can, but I mean, I just was too hostile and angry and Ramirez, and the part thing that really sort of triggered it is we sat down and Richard sort of rolled out this long manifesto, and it was clear that whatever questions I asked him, he was just gonna read his manifesto. That's what he wanted to do with his 15 minutes. Yeah. So 30 minutes, whatever we had. So that pissed me off, but it made a good interview, and it's still
that's Mike's book, Story Hustler.
Story Hustler.
You're losing it. You're losing it in the green.
I know.
It's
the camera.
And there's a story behind that when I covered Michael Jackson for when the first allegations of wrongdoing on Michael Jackson's part broke. I got on an airplane from LA to Singapore with Elizabeth Taylor, the actress, because she's such a good friend of Michael. We spent a cameraman from a good friend of mine named Alex Fragnito, an Australian cameraman that I went all over the world with. We hooked onto Michael Jackson in those early days of that story and went all over the world, Mexico City, Singapore, France, London for a long period of time. I mean, I got to see the world on that. But the name of the book, Story Hustler, a woman wrote a book about Michael Jackson and the media coverage at that time. And in the book, she referred to me as a story hustler.
Wow.
I know she didn't mean
I'm going to start using that for some YouTubers, just so you know.
I
like that.
The thing, and God bless the woman. God bless her efforts. Her name was Campbell, and I recommend the book highly. But the bottom line is, she referred to me as a story hustler. I don't think she meant it as flattery, but I thought this completely summarizes what I do. If I ever write a book someday, I'm going to steal her line.
That's hilarious.
I highly recommend your book. Like, it is fascinating. Like, it's written like every day. Like, Mike is sitting down with us at a bar, like telling his war stories.
It's not for everybody. Cases. It's just sort of random.
It is. No, it's for everybody.
Throwing elbows at people that I felt like needed an elbow. I mean, it
sounds like my kind of shit, man.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. I like this guy. Like Mike's my cup of tea here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I've got in a half an hour. I've got a couple more guests to bring up for the next half hour, but I've got an interview with Brittany Valdez, who is London Valdez's mother, the teenager that went missing on June 7th in Oklahoma. And the medical examiner's report came out Friday. So in half an hour, I'm going to be interviewing her. Hopefully she's still coming up.
Yeah, these are the stories that you can make a difference on. Little stories are out of the real deal. Not getting the attention. You want to make a difference, you can probably make a difference with these kinds of stories.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate your time.
Nice meeting you, Mike.
Thank you for hanging with us.
Nice to see you guys. We'll talk again. Thank you, Joe. I'm out.
Fighting the good fight, man. Keep fighting the good fight.
Later.
See ya.
I disappeared too.
You are.
I blooped everybody out, including myself. Oh, so if you don't know, you're juror number 18, right, Tom? You were juror number 18?
Yep.
For Lori Daybell's Idaho trial, which wasn't broadcast on TV, and then they released the audio of it daily, but also the author of 2 books and working on your 3rd, right?
Yeah, I'm well into the 3rd book. Probably a little over halfway done.
So have we really talked since Lori's sentencing on July 25th?
Yeah, I haven't talked to anybody since Lori's sentencing. I haven't done any interviews or talked to anybody.
Oh, wow. Well, you have had a lot going on in your life.
Yeah.
So do you want to update anybody on that? That's up to you, what you want to share.
I'm happy to, if you want me to take the time to do that.
Absolutely. I would love for you to do that.
Okay. So before I start, the ending of this story is much better than the beginning. So bear with me through this. My 3-year-old grandson, Miles, is my soulmate, my pard. I don't know how else to describe it. He's just my first grandkid. And obviously that means a lot, but also, I don't know, somehow we just have always had a connection, spend almost every day together, every day that I can, for sure. He had a tragic accident. I don't want to get into the accident, but he fell and had a traumatic brain injury. He was in a coma for 8 days. They didn't know if he was going to survive, but he did. When he came out of the coma, they didn't know if he would breathe on his own, but he did. So just to jump forward, it's been 31 days since the accident. At this point, he's able to understand commands. He moves with intention. He's not walking or talking or anything yet. We don't know if he can see, but he's doing way better than anybody predicted. And we have very high hopes that he's going to be, if not normal, something really close to that. And we would have never thought that even a few weeks ago. So we're very thankful for that. We're getting one day at a time. Every day we're getting our Miles back, and it's just amazing. And I have to say too that the accident happened just a few blocks from St. Luke's Hospital, and those people, I can't say enough about them and their care. The knowledge that they have is a miracle, and their love and the care that they're giving him there is just amazing. And all the support that we've gotten from everybody. All of these are the reasons that this kid is alive. Without every bit of it, this kid doesn't survive. And I'm so thankful for all of it.
And not just surviving, but getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing.
So I have been out of touch for the last 31 or so days. I left the sentencing. We were on our way to Sturgis. We were in Sturgis when we got the call about the accident, and flew home. And it's I've pretty much been in the hospital ever since.
Wow, and that's high demand too. Like, just to be in one location all day, every day is just so hard to do.
Very high demand. And we have 2 younger grandkids, Miles' 2 brothers, who we've been doing our best to take care of through all of this too.
Wow. So everybody, prayers for Miles and the family. Yes. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
So, having handled the important stuff, let's handle the not important stuff.
Yeah, I might be a little behind the curve right now. This is my first interview. I haven't been thinking about it.
It's okay. That's how I roll, though. I like to just go naturally and organic, right? Let's be organic. Yeah. Like when I will rewatch something like a day of trial or something, I like to watch it fresh. Like, I don't want to watch it ahead of time and then rewatch it, and tell people what my thoughts were the first time. I just want to say it. So Your thoughts on sentencing?
But the reason I write books is I'm not a fast thinker like a lot of you guys are. I'm more
You gotta plot it out. It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about my 1-year anniversary show.
Yeah,
congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And why in the world do I have a YouTube channel? Because I'm a complete introvert. Like I don't like introducing myself to people. I don't like inserting myself into conversations. I don't like being on camera, which I am right now, and I kind of have to be because I have a YouTube channel. But
yeah,
I
think that's why we kind of hit it off, is we both have that kind of personality.
Yeah, yep, and absolutely.
We find ourselves in this world for whatever reason and doing our best, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and we met at jury selection for Lori's first trial in April.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe it was the end of March. It was the end of March or beginning of April. But yeah, we sat next to each other and we totally hit it off. Like, we have similar personalities, but my personality does not lend itself to being a YouTube content creator. It just doesn't.
I think it does. I think you might have just the right personality for it, actually.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But sentencing. Yeah. Her final tirade, and I'm not going to play it on my channel, but it was something else.
It was. The thing that I like the best about that is Judge Boreski's little interjections when she would say something that was untrue. I forget what his exact words, but he would be like, "That's not true."
Right. No. She said she said something like the legal system doesn't permit that, and he's like, "Well, actually, it does."
Yeah. Yeah.
Was one of his comments.
Yeah, and that's a simple little thing like that coming from a judge, that was actually kind of meaningful that he would do that.
Absolutely.
And trial's over, and I put up with you for all this time, and that's enough.
Yep. I put up with you for like 7 months, and I've had enough. Yeah. But his statements to the families were, I thought, particularly thoughtful.
Yeah. You can see the compassion, and that's nice to see. The judge has to sit there and be neutral through the whole thing. That's his whole job. Well, that's a good part of his job. And at the end, he was able to tell people how he felt, and that was really nice to see.
It was, and I mean, his default look for the trial when he was trying to remain impartial was fingers on the forehead. Like, he did that so many times, and then he finally got to not do that anymore.
I often wondered what was going through his mind, and I think I thought about what I'd be thinking if I were sitting in his place. How long is this going to go on? How long do I have to put up with this? Can I put a stop to this? What are the jury thinking?
So completely different than your experience in Idaho as a juror.
Oh yeah, it really was. And I liked the fact that jurors in open court had the opportunity to ask questions. I would have loved to have that opportunity, but I think it would have slowed down the trial quite a bit because I had a lot of questions.
I bet you did.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny about the first jury on the April trial asked a lot of questions. Like, almost every day there were questions for a witness or multiple witnesses. But it took a good 3 or 4 days before we got a jury question from the second jury. And I was actually starting to get worried. I was like, are these guys paying attention?
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's hard for me to have their perspective. I tried to put myself in their position and think about what they might have been thinking, because I was constantly going, why aren't they asking about this, or why aren't they asking about that? But they truly didn't know to ask. I thought, why wouldn't they ask about Alex, or why aren't they asking where Tyler or JJ are? I don't know, so many other things that they could have asked, and they just didn't know to. And I thought that was unfair. Like, I thought that They should have been able to know that Lori had been convicted of their murders in Idaho. If she had just been accused, then I understand that information shouldn't be shared with a jury that's judging her. But she had been convicted, and I don't think it was fair to the jury. I think we talked about this a little before, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was fair to the jurors. And it seems like information that would have been pertinent to the trial, since she had been convicted. Why not let those jurors know that she was guilty of murdering 3 people in Idaho?
Yeah, and Judge Boreski actually saved her from that multiple times, because he's like, if you're going to open that door and you're going to talk about what a good person you are, then you've opened the door to us talking about how you're also serving 4 life sentences in Idaho for unaliving 3 people.
I think
he saved her from that.
Yeah, and Trina K too, and I think they did it to keep the trial clean, to keep it from going to a mistrial or having it retried or whatever. I think they had to do that. I think so. In a way, they kind of had to help her through her job, since she had no idea what she was doing.
Right. They're just preserving the appellate reasons, probably more than out of an abundance of caution. Just like we don't want her appealing it on those grounds. Yep.
Yeah. And I think they both did a good job of that. They kind of wound their way through this whole thing, kept her under wraps pretty well.
Yeah, Trina K's closing statement, I think she kind of took the gloves off.
Oh yeah.
Like that was an amazing closing statement. And she's like, all right, I'm done with this chick. This is the last time. And she still has to be careful not to cross the line. But she came pretty close. Like you could tell that she's just pissed off at her.
I got to talk to her after that too for the first time, and that was really cool.
Did you really? Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
that's amazing.
My impression of her was like I didn't find her to be likable, and all I was really seeing was the back of her head in court while she was talking. So I wasn't judging that on anything, I guess, other than the back of her head and what words I could hear her speak. But as time went on through the trial, I came to realize that she's a very good and thorough attorney. And also she has her own kind of personality that I kind of learned to like. And then getting to speak to her in person, I found her very caring, interested, and likable. So first impressions, I can't trust those so much.
Right. No, I'm the same way. And my first impression of her is that she knew that Lori was representing herself, and she took advantage of that. Like she asked so many leading questions, especially in the first trial, some in the second trial, but especially in the first trial, she asked so many leading questions. And if Lori was a decent attorney, she would have challenged that and said objection leading like 100 times, but she didn't because she's not a lawyer and she's not all that bright.
I'm not a lawyer either. And there were some things that I thought Lori should object to, and she didn't. I can't remember honestly exactly what they were, but there were times.
Yeah. But that's what you get when you represent yourself.
She did a horrible job. I mean, I wasn't expecting much, but it was worse than I thought it would be.
It was, and she did it to herself. Like it's not like she made a couple of legal mistakes. It's like she just didn't follow logic from point A to point B to point C.
Yeah, exactly. She's so narcissistic. She can't. I really think that. I think to this day she doesn't understand why she couldn't roll Judge Boreski over. I think she still thinks she can manipulate people and get them to go along with her, and I just don't get that. It's been so long since she's been able to do that with anybody other than maybe her fellow inmates.
Right. Yes. Who are all cheering for her, apparently.
Yeah.
And she is championing their cause.
Yeah. Such a good person to have in that position. So one of her sticks her in the neck with some kind of shiv.
Oh, gosh. She was probably better off being in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. Honestly, she probably was.
Yeah. And I didn't pay a lot of attention at the time, but I know she's back in Idaho, and I saw some pictures. She looked pretty happy to be coming back here.
Yeah, I got the transfer report when it first came out and published it on Twitter. Not a big deal. She's in Pocatello, I think.
Yeah, and I went and looked at that prison. I didn't get to go inside at the time, but it looks pretty nice from the outside. Unless you want to be back here.
Probably nicer than Maricopa County Jail. Like, to be honest, it probably is.
I'm sure it's much nicer than that. Yeah, a lot more civilized.
Once the jury came back with that verdict, she's like, I'm not going to fight the extenuating circumstances or the aggravating factors. I'm not going to fight that. I'll stipulate, blah, blah, blah. Get me back to Idaho as soon as possible.
Didn't she even ask the judge if she could get back sooner?
Yep. Yep.
It's a nice prison. It sits up on a hill overlooking the city and all the trees, and you can see 5 or 6 steeples from there of the Mormon churches. It's pretty nice. A lot of green grass, and it just looks like a really pleasant. Looks like a school, honestly. I would like to go inside at some point and see what it's like on the inside.
Yeah, they let Nate in for was it that jail or was it Estrella? They let Nate go in and take a tour of one of the jails that either had to do with
he did the one that Chad is at.
Okay, that may be the one.
That's the one in Cuna.
Okay.
And they might have let us in. I just didn't plan ahead. We were driving through, and I thought, let's just drive up and check out the prison that Lori's at, and so we did.
That would actually be fascinating to get to go inside and take a tour. So that's kind of the area that I've had to think about over the last year. So I'm a YouTube content creator, right? And that's social media. So a lot of public agencies don't take me seriously as an investigative reporter. Like for the first trial, I was public. For the second trial, because I put in my dues, I paid my dues for the first trial. Vincent let me come in as media for the second trial, but that was his subjective decision, Right. So if I'm going to go take a tour of a prison, like what kind of media credentials would I need to do that?
The Constitution is really clear on that. And if you look up the definition of media, it covers you and me and everybody who has, if you write books, if you write articles, it doesn't matter what you do. You're media, technically. And to me, everybody should be treated the same. They just laughed at me when I tried, because, I wanted to make sure I got in the courtroom. And I said, hey, I've been writing books. I've written books, and I'm writing books about this. I'm media. And it just, And I got some flack from one of the higher up media guys.
Yeah.
Which
they'll give you some side eye for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, he was just flat out like, "You're not media," and that made me. I'll never like that guy again. But he's not wrong. They can't let everybody who claims to be media in the courtroom, and I get that. They got to draw a line somewhere.
But where do they draw it? That's the question. That's the major question. So I have applied for media credentials with a certain international organization that gives media credentials, and their line is if you've published 3 or more articles, and those can be social media articles. So I qualify for credentials under their credentialing system.
Good.
So hopefully in the near future that's coming up.
Well, and podcasting, honestly, that's where real journalism is happening nowadays, right?
It's funny you say that, because Bob and Mike and I just had that conversation. Like legacy media is not the end all be all anymore.
It's not where people are going to get their news or get information about trials like our trial or any trials. So, and it's very important. And it's supposed to be, freedom of the press. There are supposed to be people out there shaking things up and rattling cages. People like Mike Watkiss, who go out and do whatever they need to do to get the story. and sometimes they're a pain in the butt, right? But that's their job. And that's what podcasters are nowadays. And a lot of people like Watkiss who were in the mainstream media have turned away from that and gone to podcasting.
Yeah.
Because we have more freedom.
It was so flattering of him. We were texting the other day when we were setting up the interview for today. And I was like, I would like to talk to you about the evolution of media, the way it was back in your day and to where it is now. And he's like, I'm just taking my cues from people like you and Lauren Matthias. You know, he's like, I'm looking to you guys to figure it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. He's an interesting guy.
He is. He is a very interesting guy.
I'm just reading his book. I just caught the end of your conversation with him and you were talking about that. But when I met him, you were there at the same time, but I met him and I thought, I know this guy from somewhere, but I wasn't sure where. And we got to talking and I still didn't know who he was, but I knew that he had a lot of information about the FLDS, which I'm very interested in also, obviously. And so we kind of hit it off and had some.
I should have kept him on when I brought you on, but there was that little thing where we all got kicked off. We all got kicked off when you got brought in.
I was hoping you would, yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, he'll be around, and he and I kind of have a rapport too. I think he's a super nice guy and open to it. So we'll be talking again soon. The three of us, we should have a conversation.
I would love that. When I can get my mind back wrapped around most of what I'm writing about in my third book is the history of the Mormon Church and the FLDS and just religious fundamentalism. My premise of my book is how did we create a Lori Vallow Daybell, right? There's something about our culture that allows for somebody like her,
and there's something about the Mormon Church that allows for it,
right?
Kresha and I have talked about that ad nauseum because she's not that far off the deep end of the LDS pool. She's not.
So I go all the way back. I actually go all the way back to Christ, kind of, and start there. And I think you have to. It's all important, because for so long I've been questioning, how does a person like this exist? How, not why, but how could she murder her children and feel perfectly okay with it through all these trials, everything? How can she sit there in court and not be humiliated? How can she do this? And so that's been my question. And honestly, in my first two books, I knew the question, but I wasn't able to thoroughly answer it. And so that's why the third book. I think I'm getting to a point where I'm able to actually answer how a mother can murder her children. It's a complex question.
It is. Yeah,
so it's
and I'm going to use the word here that I haven't used yet today, but act so nonchalant about it. Like when Aunt Vicky said Lori rot in prison and she turns around and she winks.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
What the heck is wrong with that woman?
There's
something seriously wrong with her.
I can't imagine what else she could have done that would have been more hurtful in that moment. Right. Yeah. To such a wonderful woman as Vicky.
Yeah.
She wants to cause pain.
She does. It's inherent. I've got to go. I've got my 4:00 interview coming up with Brittany Valdez. Fingers crossed that goes well, that I don't screw it up. That's London Valdez's mom. London is the 16-year-old that disappeared or that went missing on June 5th, reported missing June 7th, and her body was found June 12th.
Oh, shoot.
In Oklahoma, in the Panhandle, in rural Oklahoma. Medical examiner's report came out Friday. So
that's going to be a tough one, Joe.
It is tough. But thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for taking the time. Kresha and Megan ended up not being able to come on. But that's probably a good thing because we probably would have gone to like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, they can talk. They're a lot better talkers than I am. Well,
all
good
right,
luck,
Tom.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Thank you all for all of the super chats and all of the super stickers and everything. Thank you to my community. Thank you for the support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the memberships. Just thank you for being here. You are an amazing community, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again in a couple of minutes.
See you soon, my lovely friends. Have a good afternoon. Don't forget to stop back by and see me real soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference.